If you make a decent income, have a car, pay your bills, and still feel like you're nowhere near $100,000 in net worth, you are not unusual. In fact, the numbers are uncomfortable. The median household wealth in America is far below the level many people imagine. And millions of households have little or no financial cushion after accounting for their debts. You can earn $60,000, $80,000, even $100,000 a year and still have a surprisingly small net worth. You might live in a nice apartment, drive a relatively new car, have streaming subscriptions, dinners out, vacations, and a closet full of things you barely remember buying. From the outside, it looks like you're doing fine, but your balance sheet tells a different story. And that is the problem. So why is the first $100,000 so ridiculously difficult? Why can someone work for 10 or 15 years, earn more every few years, and still feel like their wealth barely moves? Here's the answer I keep coming back to. The first $100,000 is mostly built by what you refuse to spend. The next $100,000 increasingly gets built by what your money can earn. That distinction changes everything. Hey, I'm Brian, and I spend way too much time thinking about why some people steadily build wealth while other people with similar incomes stay financially stuck. And today, I want to show you the 4 traps that keep people below that first major threshold. We're going to look at lifestyle creep, the payments mentality, the failure to use time, and the confusion between things you own and assets that actually produce wealth. Then I'll show you the math behind why $100,000 matters so much. Because once you understand the game, you stop trying to look wealthy and start building something that actually becomes harder to stop. If you want more breakdowns like this, subscribe. If you're new here and just subscribed, comment your name below. I read every comment and shout out new subscribers in my next video. I do appreciate you joining me on this finance journey. Think of building wealth like an old arcade machine. At the beginning, you keep feeding it quarters. 1 quarter, then another, and for a long time, it feels like nothing is happening. You put $500 into investments, and a year later, you might look at the account and think, that's it? That's because when your balance is small, your contributions are doing almost all the heavy lifting. But eventually, something changes. The machine starts spitting quarters back at you. Your investments produce dividends. Your assets appreciate. Your previous gains begin producing their own gains. And suddenly, the machine you spent years feeding starts helping you feed itself. That is why $100,000 matters. Not because the number is magical, because at that size, your money finally becomes large enough for its own movement to become noticeable. Trap 1. The raise disappearing act. This is one of the easiest traps to fall into because it doesn't feel like a mistake. Imagine you earn $60,000. You get a raise and now make $70,000. You think, finally, I can breathe. So you move into a nicer apartment. Maybe your housing cost rises by $300 a month. You upgrade the car. That adds another $200. Then you start eating out more. Maybe another $200. A few subscriptions appear. A better phone. More weekend spending. Suddenly, your $10,000 raise has almost completely disappeared. And here's the psychological trick. Your brain doesn't experience this as lifestyle inflation. It experiences it as normal life. The apartment doesn't feel luxurious after 6 months. The car doesn't feel special after you've driven it every day. Your new spending becomes your new baseline. That's hedonic adaptation. You adapt to the upgrade, and then you need another upgrade to create the same feeling. And the system around you is built for exactly this behavior. Car companies don't primarily advertise the total cost of ownership. They advertise what you can afford per month. Apartment listings show you what fits your current income. Retailers constantly give you reasons to turn higher earnings into higher consumption. The more you earn, the more opportunities you're given to spend. So here's the rule I want you to remember. A raise that becomes a lifestyle is not a raise. It's a temporary increase in your ability to spend. Trap 2. Thinking in payments instead of prices. This trap is even more dangerous because the numbers can look harmless. Let's say you're looking at a car. The salesperson tells you, it's only $700 a month. $700 sounds manageable. You earn good money. Your rent is covered. Your paycheck can handle it. But multiply $700 by 60 months. That's $42,000 in payments before you even consider other costs, depending on the loan terms. And suddenly, you're not making a decision about a $700 monthly expense. You're making a decision about committing tens of thousands of dollars to a depreciating asset. The same thing happens with phones, furniture, electronics, vacations, even everyday purchases. Your brain is naturally better at processing small immediate numbers than large future totals. $700 feels like a manageable bite. $42,000 feels like a major financial decision. So the payment disguises the price. And entire industries understand this. Financing makes expensive purchases feel psychologically smaller because the cost gets stretched across time. You don't have to feel the pain today. You just agree to feel it repeatedly for years. That's why I don't want you asking only, "Can I afford the payment?" Ask the much more uncomfortable question, "Would I still buy this if I had to pay the entire price today?" Because wealthy behavior isn't about making every purchase cheap. It's about refusing to let small monthly commitments quietly consume your future cash flow. If you only look at the payment, someone else gets to decide what the purchase costs you. Trap 3. Wasting your most valuable asset. This one is the most painful because you can't get it back. Time. Imagine 3 people each invest $500 every month. Person 1 starts at 25. Person 2 starts at 35. Person 3 starts at 45. Assume all 3 continue until 65 and earn an average annual return of 8%. Person 1 has decades for those contributions and their gains to compound. Person 2 has 10 fewer years. Person 3 has 20 fewer years, and the difference becomes enormous. At 8%, investing $500 a month from age 25 to 65 produces roughly $1,600,000. Starting at 35 produces roughly $150,000 less than half of that, despite contributing a very similar amount each month over a shorter period. Starting at 45 leaves you with dramatically less. That's the time arbitrage most people completely ignore. You think, "I'll invest more when I earn more." But your future higher income cannot purchase your lost years back. And psychologically, your brain struggles with this because the reward is abstract. $500 spent tonight gives you something tangible. $500 invested gives you a number on a screen that might matter decades from now. So you postpone it. Then you postpone it again. Meanwhile, the person who started earlier isn't necessarily smarter. They're simply giving the arcade machine more time to work. That is the brutal lesson. You don't need to invest a huge amount early. You need to stop giving compound growth an excuse to start late. And this leads to the 4th trap. Trap 4. Confusing stuff with assets. You can own a lot of things and still have very little wealth. Imagine 2 people each have $50,000 of net worth. Person 1 has $30,000 sitting in investments and $20,000 of cash. Person 2 has a $35,000 car, $10,000 of electronics, designer clothes, and $5,000 in the bank. On paper, they can look equally wealthy, but their balance sheets are moving in completely different directions. Person 2's car loses value every year. The clothes don't produce income. The electronics depreciate the moment they're purchased. Person 1 owns assets that can potentially produce returns. That distinction matters. A stock isn't valuable because you can show it to someone. An index fund isn't impressive because your friends know you own one. Its power comes from owning a piece of productive businesses and allowing those businesses, and your investment returns, to compound. This is where consumer culture gets confusing. We're constantly shown ownership as evidence of success. The bigger house, the newer car, the expensive watch, the upgraded phone. But wealth isn't measured by how expensive your life looks. It's measured by how much of your money is working without requiring another hour of your labor. So before buying something, ask a simple question. Does this purchase put money into my future, or does it pull money out of it? Because looking rich and becoming wealthy are 2 completely different games. Now we can finally come back to the number that started this entire conversation, $100,000. Why does it matter? Because the math starts becoming visible. Take a hypothetical 8% annual return. 8% of $10,000 is only $800. Useful, but not life-changing. 8% of $50,000 is $4,000. Now you're starting to notice. But 8% of $100,000 is $8,000. That's $8,000 of potential growth without you working an additional hour. And that's before considering what happens when those gains compound again. This is why the first $100,000 can feel painfully slow. You're doing almost all the feeding. You're putting money into the arcade machine. but the machine barely gives anything back. Then you reach $100,000, and suddenly, the machine has enough inside it to start producing meaningful payouts. The timeline can begin accelerating. Getting from $0 to $100,000 might take years. But if you keep contributing and earning returns, getting from $100,000 to $200,000 can take substantially less time. And $200,000 to $300,000 can potentially take even less. That's the transition. The first $100,000 teaches you how to build wealth. The next $100,000 starts showing you what wealth can do. Charlie Munger famously said, "The first $100,000 is a B. But you gotta do it." That quote is often repeated because it captures something people don't want to hear. The beginning is supposed to feel difficult. There is no secret trick required here. There is a boring framework. And honestly, boring is good. First, kill high-interest debt. If you're paying 15, 20, or 25% interest on a credit card balance, investing aggressively while carrying that debt usually makes little sense. Second, build a $10,000 emergency fund or an appropriate cash reserve based on your actual expenses and circumstances. You need enough breathing room that one unexpected bill doesn't force you back onto a credit card. Third, automate your investing. Don't wait until the end of the month to see what's left. Move the money first. Fourth, live below your means. Not temporarily, not until you get rich. Make the gap between what you earn and what you spend part of your permanent financial system. None of this is glamorous. That's the point. You don't need a glamorous financial system. You need one that keeps working when you're tired, distracted, or tempted. Now let me show you why income alone doesn't determine who wins. Meet Person A and Person B. Person A earns $100,000 a year. Person B earns $70,000. At first glance, this shouldn't even be a contest. Person A makes $30,000 more. But Person A spends aggressively. After taxes and expenses, Person A manages to invest only $500 a month. Person B lives in a smaller apartment, drives an older car, avoids expensive financing, and keeps lifestyle costs low. Person B invests $1,000 every month. Same market. Same time period, different behavior. After 10 years, assuming an 8% annual return, Person A's $500 monthly investment grows to roughly $92,000. Person B's $1,000 monthly investment grows to roughly $184,000. Person B earns less, yet Person B ends up with roughly twice as much invested. That's the uncomfortable part of personal finance. The person with the bigger paycheck doesn't automatically win. The person who creates the bigger gap between income and spending has more ammunition. Remember the arcade machine. Person A keeps putting quarters in, but keeps taking most of them back out. Person B keeps feeding the machine. Eventually, the machine has enough inside it to start doing something interesting. Your income determines how much you can potentially feed the machine. Your behavior determines how much actually stays inside it. And I want to be honest about something. This process is boring. There is no applause when you don't upgrade your car. Nobody congratulates you for keeping the same phone for another year. Your brokerage account doesn't send you a trophy because you invested $500 instead of buying something you wanted. Spending gives you immediate feedback. You buy the car, you feel different. You book the vacation, you feel excited. You order the expensive dinner. You get the dopamine immediately. Investing is different. You move $500 into an index fund and nothing happens. You go to bed, you wake up. You go to work, you do it again. For months, it can feel like you're pushing a boulder uphill. That's why I don't think the answer is simply to tell people to be disciplined. You have to understand what you're trading. You're trading an immediate emotional reward for a future financial option, and eventually, something changes. You reach $100,000. Now an 8% return isn't $800, it's $8,000. The machine is finally paying you back in a way you can actually see. You're still responsible for feeding it, but you're no longer doing all the work yourself. That is the psychological breakthrough. You stop feeling like you're chasing money and start feeling like your money is finally running alongside you. So if you remember nothing else, remember these 3 things. 1. Invest at least half of every raise instead of automatically turning every increase in income into a lifestyle upgrade. 2. Avoid financing anything except a house when appropriate, and always think about the total cost instead of just the monthly payment. 3. Start investing now, because time is the one asset you cannot earn back later. The first $100,000 may feel painfully slow. That's normal. You're feeding the machine, but keep feeding it, because eventually, it starts feeding you back, and that's when the game changes.